Liam O'Connell knew the scent of brine and diesel better than his own name. Port Clyde, Maine, clung fiercely to its granite coast, and Liam clung just as fiercely to his father's old fishing charter boat, the Ballerine. Eleanor. 2018 wasn't exactly the golden age for small-time fishermen scraping by on tourist dollars and dwindling cod stocks. Every morning began the same, a long look at the faded photograph of his father, Sean O'Connell, stiff and proud in a Navy uniform Liam never truly understood, followed by the walk to the docks where the My Eleanor listed slightly, perpetually hungry for repairs Liam could barely afford. His father, gone when Liam was just 12, left behind a legacy wrapped in enigma, locked boxes, curt non-answers about his service. Some stories aren't meant for telling, son. And a silence that echoed louder than the Atlantic gales. Now 32, Liam felt the weight of those 20 years of unanswered questions. The townsfolk respected him, sure. He was solid, reliable, first to secure lines when a nor'easter blew in, taught kids to swim summers, even ran groceries to old Mrs. Hannigan, whose husband supposedly served with Sean. Even salty Sam Barlow, the town's resident Vietnam vet, whose cryptic pronouncements usually involved mackerel migrations or the government putting fluoride in lobster bait, gave Liam a grudging respect, occasionally sharing a beer and hinting Sean was more than he let on. Yet whispers followed Liam, quiet speculations about Sean O'Connell's past, fueled perhaps by the man's quiet intensity, an abrupt departure from the Navy. And then there was Silas Blackwood, a man whose tailored suits looked offensively out of place on the weathered docks, smelling faintly of expensive cologne and predatory intent. Blackwood, with his portfolio of waterfront properties that grew like algae bloom, circled the Eleanor like a well-fed shark, making offensively low offers, his smile thin and condescending, clearly viewing Liam's sentimental attachment as a weakness to be exploited. Blackwood envisioned condos painted offensively bright colors, a marina for yachts named things like Tax Haven 2, not a working fisherman's legacy. That Tuesday felt wrong from the start. Dark clouds, bruised purple and gray, piled up on the horizon, promising a vicious squall. Liam had cancelled his charter wisely. As he wrestled with mooring lines, the wind already howling a mournful tune through the rigging, a sound pierced the storm's growing symphony, a desperate cry for help. Liam scanned the churning gray expanse 50 yards out. A head bobbed, vanishing and reappearing amidst the white caps. Instinct, raw and unthinking, took over. Jacket flung aside, Liam hit the shockingly cold water. Years spent in these waves gave him strength, but the current fought back viciously. He reached the struggling figure just as the man was succumbing, hauling him up by the collar of his soaked shirt. The man gasped, eyes wide with primal terror. Older, maybe 60, face etched by time and sea, hair military short and gray. Liam bellowed reassurance against the wind, urging him to float, towing the dead weight towards the shore. Exhaustion gnawed at him as they finally tumbled onto the wet sand. Collapsed, chest heaving, Liam noticed the tattoo on the man's exposed shoulder, stark against the pale skin. A trident, an eagle, an anchor. Navy SEAL. Liam had seen the emblem in books, online. Before Liam could process, the man coughed seawater, his voice a ragged whisper, thanking him before his eyes rolled back, consciousness lost. The world tilted slightly. A simple rescue? Or the first loose thread in the tightly woven mystery of his father? The ambulance arrived with jarring efficiency, its sirens a counterpoint to the receding storm. As paramedics worked, a small, heavy object slipped from the rescued man's pocket, landing softly on the sand. Liam picked it up, a challenge coin, brassy and bearing intricate symbols. It felt oddly familiar, resonating with a memory locked away. Before he could inspect it further, a paramedic beckoned. The rescued man was stirring, asking for him. Liam knelt. The man's grip was surprisingly strong. His eyes, though clouded with pain and exhaustion, held a sharp intelligence. He inquired Liam's name, his origin, Clearwater Harbor, Port Clyde. Recognition flickered in the man's gaze, a spark of understanding that made Liam's skin prickle. A whispered phrase, almost lost in the wind's dying moans, hung in the air. The Poseidon knows. Then, unconsciousness reclaimed him. Liam's attempt to follow to the hospital was politely but firmly rebuffed. Family only. His mention of the name recognition earned only a tired shrug from a nurse preoccupied with protocols and perhaps tired of coastal town drama. He was left standing outside, the damp chill seeping into his bones, the weight of the challenge coin heavy in his hand, the cryptic phrase echoing in his mind. That night, sleep was a foreign country. Liam paced the small cabin of the Eleanor, the coin turning over and over in his fingers. He retrieved the old metal box, one of the few tangible pieces of his father's past. Inside, nestled amongst a few medals and that faded photograph of 6 uniformed men on a submarine deck, lay its twin. Identical. The same imposing emblem, the same words encircling the edge. SEAL Team Poseidon. Poseidon. He'd researched Navy SEALs obsessively after his father's death, trying to piece together the puzzle, but that name had never surfaced. It was a ghost designation, seemingly scrubbed from official histories like an inconvenient stain. What clandestine world had his quiet, unassuming father inhabited? He spoke the question aloud to the empty cabin, the words swallowed by the gentle rocking of the boat. Back on shore, Silas Blackwood hadn't missed the commotion. Through the window of his ridiculously oversized waterfront office, he'd seen the ambulance, heard the whispers about Liam's dramatic rescue. To Blackwood, this was just another distraction, another sign of Liam's infuriating impracticality, focusing on pointless heroics instead of the sensible business of selling the dilapidated Eleanor. For scrap value, which Blackwood generously estimated at slightly less than the cost of a decent lobster roll. He'd likely use this, somehow, spin it into Liam being unreliable, perhaps too caught up in drama to maintain his dock space properly, maybe hint that the stress was making Liam unstable. Blackwood's patience, thin as his imported Italian loafers, was wearing out. He wanted that prime spot, and the stubborn fisherman was an annoying barnacle-encrusted obstacle to progress, profit, and possibly a third yacht. Meanwhile, Liam, oblivious to Blackwood's machinations, drifted into a restless sleep filled with fragmented images, drowning men, crushing depths, the silent, predatory shape of a submarine cutting through black water. The mystery deepened, pulling him into an undertow of questions far stronger than the coastal currents he knew so well. The rescued man, the tattoo, the identical coins, the whispered name. Pieces of a puzzle he hadn't even known existed were assembling themselves in the dark confines of the Eleanor's cabin, mocking his ignorance. Pre-dawn mist, thick as chowder, clung to Port Clyde harbor when Liam woke. Habit pulled him from the narrow bunk, the aroma of cheap coffee, strong enough to dissolve barnacles, filling the galley. Stepping onto the deck, mug in hand, the world beyond 20 yards was a milky void. Silence, profound and heavy, was broken only by the distant cry of a gull, probably complaining about the quality of discarded fish guts. Then another sound intruded, a low mechanical hum, deep and resonant, vibrating through the damp air, seemingly emanating from the water itself, like a giant, submerged appliance. Liam set his mug down, straining his eyes against the fog. The hum intensified, closer now, accompanied by a subtle churning of the water just beyond his dock. He instinctively stepped back, half expecting Nessie's disgruntled cousin. With a sound like a great beast surfacing for air, a colossal black shape breached the water, shedding cascades like a metallic waterfall. It rose, impossibly large, impossibly there, less than 50 feet from his humble fishing boat, making the Eleanor look like a bathtub toy. A submarine. Not just any submarine, but a sleek, modern Virginia-class nuclear attack submarine, settling into the harbor with an almost arrogant stillness that defied the tranquil setting and probably violated several local mooring regulations. Liam's jaw went slack, his coffee forgotten, likely stone-cold anyway. This wasn't a dream, unless his dreams suddenly involved multi-billion-dollar pieces of naval hardware. A hatch atop the sail spun open. A figure emerged, descending swiftly to the forward deck with the agility of someone not used to tripping over lobster pots. An inflatable boat was deployed with practiced efficiency that made Liam's own docking maneuvers look haphazard. 3 figures in crisp naval uniforms, looking unnervingly clean for having emerged from a giant metal fish, hopped in and motored directly towards the Eleanor. Liam remained rooted to the spot, a statue carved from disbelief and caffeine withdrawal. The inflatable nudged his dock with embarrassing gentleness. The men climbed out, their movements precise, disciplined. The leader, tall, bearing commander's insignia on his collar that gleamed even in the flat light, approached Liam, his expression as unreadable as Salty Sam's poker face. He confirmed Liam's identity, his voice calm, professional, utterly devoid of surprise at finding a nuclear submarine parked next to a fishing charter. He introduced himself. Commander James Harrington, United States Navy. They needed to speak about Captain Richard Thorne, the man Liam had rescued. Thorne was conscious, stable, and had specifically requested Liam's presence. Harrington gestured not towards the shore, but towards the impossible black behemoth dominating the harbor, as casually as if offering a lift in a pickup truck. An invitation, or perhaps an order politely disguised to come with them. Liam hesitated, his mind struggling to reconcile the mundane reality of his fishing dock with the sudden appearance of a top-secret war machine. He stammered questions about the situation, the reason for this extraordinary visitation, wondering vaguely if his boat insurance covered collisions with submerged naval assets. Commander Harrington's professional mask softened almost imperceptibly, maybe by a micron. He explained this concerned Liam's father, Chief Petty Officer Sean O'Connell. Captain Thorne, Harrington elaborated, believed Liam deserved the truth about Operation Poseidon, about Sean's real service, the life hidden behind the Fisherman facade. Harrington's gaze flickered to the challenge coin Liam still clutched, almost unconsciously, like a talisman against absurdity. He added that the coin was one of only 12 ever minted. 12. The number hung in the air, heavy with implication and exclusivity. Liam looked from the coin to the submarine whose presence seemed to bend reality, and back to the commander's steady gaze. The decision felt both monumental and inevitable. He requested 5 minutes to change, his voice steadier than he felt, needing a moment to process that his life had just taken a hard left turn into a Tom Clancy novel. The secrets his father took to the grave were surfacing, quite literally, and blocking the view. Inside the Eleanor's familiar, slightly musty cabin, Liam moved numbly, pulling on clean clothes that suddenly felt inadequate, his mind a whirlwind. He grabbed the metal box containing his father's few possessions, the matching coin, the medals, the photo, artifacts of an unknown life. One last glance at the uniformed man in the picture, a stranger wearing his father's face. The ride to the submarine was short, the inflatable cutting cleanly through the now thinning mist, the silence broken only by the engine's hum and Liam's racing heartbeat. Approaching the immense hull felt like entering the shadow of a sleeping leviathan, sleek and menacing even at rest. Painted starkly on the steel was its name, USS Poseidon. Stepping aboard was like crossing into another dimension, one smelling faintly of recycled air and classified operations. Narrow passageways hummed with latent power. Crew members moved with quiet purpose, nodding respectfully as Commander Harrington led Liam deeper into the vessel's metallic heart, warning him occasionally to watch his head, a courtesy Liam appreciated as he tried not to look like a bewildered tourist. They arrived at a compact medical bay, sterile and efficient. Captain Richard Thorne lay on a cot, an IV dripping fluid into his arm. His color was better, the near-drowning ordeal receding, but fragility clung to him like sea salt. Seeing Liam, he made an effort to sit up, waved away the attending doctor's hovering concern with a flick of his wrist. His gaze fixed on Liam, a faint, weak smile touching his lips as he remarked on the strong resemblance to Sean, a comment that now carried immense weight. Liam placed his father's box on a small table nearby, setting both challenge coins side by side, gleaming under the harsh fluorescent light. Captain Thorne confirmed Liam's unspoken question. Yes, he knew Sean. Knew him well. David Peterson, Thorne corrected gently, using the official record name, had been his right hand, the best damn frogman he'd ever known, serving together for 7 intense, dangerous years. Commander Harrington provided chairs, the legs scraping slightly on the deck. Thorne, it turned out, was Sean O'Connell's commanding officer in SEAL Team Poseidon, a unit so secret its existence remained officially denied, filed somewhere between UFO sightings and honest politicians. 12 men, the elite of the elite, hand-picked for missions deemed impossible, operating from the original USS Poseidon, this vessel's predecessor, during the iciest depths of the Cold War. Liam struggled to absorb this, contrasting the image of a covert operative scaling enemy shores with the quiet father who taught him knots and baited hooks and patiently endured Liam's teenage years. Thorne explained Sean couldn't speak of it. 50 years of sworn secrecy, an oath expiring only next month, conveniently timed. Harrington added that Thorne had retired nearby 15 years ago, living quietly, completely unaware Sean's son lived just down the coast until hearing the O'Connell name broadcast over the emergency channels after the rescue. Thorne brushed aside questions about his own unfortunate boating accident. A rogue wave, a moment's inattention, the sea reclaiming its due. That wasn't the point. He nodded to Harrington, who produced a folder stamped starkly. Declassified. Sean, Thorne recounted, his voice gaining strength with the memory, had saved his life back in '82, off the coast of North Korea. A mission gone sideways, compromised, under heavy fire. Sean, already wounded with a bullet in his shoulder, carried Thorne 2 miles through freezing water to safety. A Navy Cross followed, awarded in utmost secrecy, no public record, just a handshake in a windowless room. It was all in the folder, Thorne assured him, mission reports meticulously detailed in Sean's own hand, commendations, the full hidden history of Team Poseidon. He was telling Liam now because his own time was short. Cancer, 6 months, perhaps, the final unavoidable mission. He'd promised Sean before his death from a hidden heart condition Sean knew was stalking him. to reveal the truth when the classification lifted. Sean had planned this handover, this posthumous revelation. Thorne pressed a small cold key into Liam's hand. For safety deposit box 4137 at Clearwater National Bank, set up by Sean years ago. Why all the suffocating secrecy? Liam asked, feeling overwhelmed, adrift in this sea of revelations. Sean made enemies, Thorne explained gravely, powerful figures from shadowy organizations who wouldn't scruple at harming family for revenge, people who held grudges longer than elephants. Keeping Liam ignorant was keeping him safe. Strange childhood memories clicked into place, like tumblers in a lock. Hushed late-night phone calls his father took in his locked study, unexplained weeks-long fishing trips, the faded scars Sean dismissed as teenage foolishness. Thorne mentioned a particularly hairy mission in '89, extracting a high-level Soviet defector, literally plucking him from behind the Iron Curtain, an operation that prevented a potential nuclear incident but cost 3 team members their lives. That grateful defector's intelligence led to a covertly established government trust fund for the families of Team Poseidon. Sean's substantial share waited in that box, along with something more personal, something Sean specifically wanted Liam to have when the time was right. The weight of the key in Liam's palm felt heavier than any anchor. Commander Harrington, radiating quiet authority, escorted Liam to the imposing granite edifice of Clearwater National Bank, a place Liam usually only passed by on his way to buy bait. The commander waited discreetly near the entrance, a silent, uniformed sentinel, while a bank manager whose nervousness was palpable led Liam to a private viewing room usually reserved for clients, discussing sums with more zeros than Liam's annual income. The safety deposit box sat on the polished table, heavy and expectant, a metal Pandora's box. Liam inserted the key. The lock clicked open with satisfying finality. Inside lay several thick envelopes, a small dark wooden case, and a sealed letter addressed simply Liam, in his father's unmistakable neat handwriting. He opened the letter first, his hands trembling slightly. Sean's voice, absent for 20 years, seemed to echo from the page, apologizing for the necessary secrets, explaining that Liam's safety had always been the paramount mission, expressing a father's constant, unspoken pride that Liam had somehow felt but never fully grasped. The wooden case held the Navy Cross and other medals, tangible proof of the secret heroism, the unimaginable risks taken in darkness. He ran a finger over the cold metal of the Navy Cross, the weight of his father's hidden life, his silent sacrifices, settling upon him. Another envelope contained documents detailing the Team Poseidon Trust Fund, a sum that made Liam's eyes widen enough to fully restore the aging Eleanor several times over, or even buy a fleet of new boats, perhaps even one without a perpetual list to port. The choice, Sean wrote, was entirely Liam's. A smaller, worn envelope held coordinates, marking an offshore reef, a secret training site, a place Sean described as beautiful, almost sacred, where he and his teammates found rare moments of peace amidst the covert chaos. It was also, the letter revealed with gut-wrenching tenderness, where he had scattered Liam's mother's ashes years ago, wanting her to rest in a place that brought him solace. A final, poignant note scribbled at the bottom added, "The fishing is excellent there too, son." A watery smile broke through Liam's tears. He read the closing lines, a simple declaration of love and fierce pride, urging Liam to live well, love deeply, find his own mission. Emerging from the bank, clutching the coordinates and trust documents like fragile treasures, Liam felt profoundly changed, anchored yet unmoored. Commander Harrington acknowledged his father's greatness, mentioning the Navy's desire for a formal, albeit posthumous, recognition ceremony now that the missions were declassified. Liam agreed immediately, knowing his father would have absolutely hated the fuss and attention, but deserved the long-overdue honor. Weeks later, the Eleanor, no longer listing but gleaming with new paint, a powerful new engine and restored bright work, powered smoothly towards the coordinates marked on the old chart. Captain Richard Thorne, frail but resolute, sat comfortably in a new deck chair, an oxygen tank his quiet companion, his eyes bright with anticipation. He shared anecdotes of diving that very reef with Sean decades ago, filling in the gaps in Liam's understanding, painting a vibrant portrait of the brave, complex man Liam had known only in silhouette. Nearby, unseen on shore, Silas Blackwood could only watch the transformed boat through his ridiculously expensive binoculars with impotent fury. His smug plans for the dock space had evaporated like morning fog. Liam, armed with newfound resources and an unshakable sense of purpose inherited from a hero, was no longer an easy mark. Blackwood's bluster had met quiet resilience, his Goliath persona, deflated by Liam's unassuming victory, a perfect illustration of karma served cold like the Maine waters he so disdained. On the reef, Liam cut the engine and dropped anchor in the clear turquoise water. As they fished, Thorne spoke more of Team Poseidon, of Sean's quiet courage, not just in combat, but in choosing fatherhood over the adrenaline of the teams after his wife's sudden death. Liam mentioned his plan, formed in the quiet hours after the bank visit, using the restored Eleanor for free fishing trips for veterans. Thorne's eyes lit up with genuine warmth. Sean would have loved that, the boat continuing its legacy of service, just in a different theater. The vast emptiness Liam had carried for 20 long years wasn't gone entirely, but it was filled now, with answers, understanding, pride, and a connection that transcended secrecy and time. He had found his father, and in doing so, found his own mission, navigating the waters of his life with a newly charted course, the spirit of the Eleanor and the legacy of Poseidon guiding his way. From the town docks, old salty Sam Barlow, the Vietnam vet who knew more than he ever let on, watched the Eleanor head out towards the horizon, a slow, knowing smile creasing his weathered face as he lit his pipe. Some stories, he mused, just needed the right tide to come in, and maybe a nuclear submarine to give things a nudge.